Years after she vanished without a trace, Chelsea Hamilton walked back into the lives she left behind. In her arms was Achilda Salamide boy no older than 2. The town of Wyndham Cove didn't need long to start whispering, but Chelsea silenced all doubt with a single sentence. "This is Martin Richardson's son." Her voice was even. Her eyes locked on Martin's, the man who once loved her and had moved on with another. Not just another, but Bradley Smitty Smith, Martin's husband. Martin stared at her, ashen and silent. Smitty, standing beside him, looked between them, searching for a crack in what had just been declared. No one spoke for a beat too long. Then came the inevitable storm. Chelsea wasn't bluffing. She wasn't looking for attention. She had a birth certificate with Martin's name printed in ink, and a paternity test was the next step. Martin denied it, of course. He demanded proof. Smitty demanded answers. The test was done in silence, everyone too stunned or too angry to speak freely. Days passed with unbearable tension until the results came back. 99.9% positive. The boy was Martin Richardson's biological son. The revelation ripped through the Richardson estate like a grenade. Martin had no memory of fathering a child. Chelsea had disappeared after their brief and chaotic relationship, just before she was meant to leave town for good. Everyone assumed she had. She hadn't. She'd left pregnant, fled the toxic legacy of the Richardson name, and now returned with a child that changed everything. Smitty didn't cry. He didn't scream. He packed a bag and left their house on the cliffs, the one Martin had built for them, brick by brick, as a testament to a life they both believed in. Martin called out after him, tried to explain, but what could he say? The DNA test wasn't a theory or a possibility, it was fact. A fact that shattered 3 years of trust. Chelsea filed for custody immediately. She didn't want full custody, not yet. She wanted to be recognized, for Eli to be acknowledged by the Richardson name. But Smitty knew better. He saw through it. She wanted power. With Martin as the legal father, Eli became an heir to the Richardson fortune shares in the company, land rights. A claim to the legacy Martin and his brother Thomas had fought over since their father's death. The inheritance battle had simmered for years, but now Chelsea had the leverage to reignite it. Martin was torn between love and duty. He hadn't asked for this child, hadn't known about him. But now that Eli was real flesh, blood, eyes like his own, it couldn't look away. He wanted to do the right thing. Smitty saw that and felt the cut deepen. He wasn't angry at Eli, just devastated at what the boy's existence meant. Everything he and Martin had built now balanced on a nice edge. Thomas Richardson, always the opportunist, saw an opening. He never approved of Martin marrying Smitty. To him, it had weakened the family image, tarnished the name. With Eli in the picture, Thomas had a new weapon. He argued that Martin's share of the company should be frozen, pending a review of succession rights. The Richardson will had clear stipulations about legitimate heirs and continuity. A child out of wedlock, if acknowledged, could supersede any non-blood beneficiary, including Smitty. The boardroom wars began almost immediately. Martin fought to retain control while negotiating with Chelsea through lawyers and private meetings. She wanted Eli's future secure education, trust fund, inheritance, but Martin wanted a relationship, not just obligation. He offered shared custody, access, and support, but she refused to concede anything without legal guarantees. Smitty, watching it unfold, realized he wasn't just being replaced emotionally, life was being written out legally. Smitty filed for divorce 2 weeks after the DNA results. It was brutal but necessary. His name would never appear in the Richardson family tree, and he refused to fade quietly. The media picked up on the story, the billionaire heir, his estranged husband, the return of the ex-lover with a secret son. Wyndham Cove turned into a war zone of public sympathy and ruthless speculation. Smitty's law firm distanced itself from the scandal. Martin's board partners questioned his judgment. And through it all, Eli remained quiet, innocent, untouched by the chaos his very existence had unleashed. Chelsea began planting seeds of doubt in the media and behind closed doors. She claimed Martin had known, that they'd met in secret after his wedding to Smitty, that Eli wasn't an accident but a backup plan away for Martin to keep one foot in both lives. Martin denied it all, but suspicion was a virus. It spread quickly, quietly, and without cure. Friends turned cold. Support waned. Even Martin's mother, Eleanor, who had once championed his marriage to Smitty, began to question his choices. As legal proceedings escalated, so did personal tensions. Chelsea demanded a place at the table literally. She wanted a seat on the Richardson Foundation board, citing Eli's future. Thomas backed her, sensing an ally. Smitty, now fully outside the house but still connected emotionally, confronted Martin one night in a bitter, rain-soaked standoff. "You let her in," Smitty said, voice low and flat. "You let her burn it all down, and you handed her the matches." "I didn't know," Martin said again, his voice breaking in a way Smitty had never heard. "I didn't know, Smitty. I swear to God, I didn't." Smitty didn't answer. He turned and walked away, for good this time. Chelsea moved into a house not far from the estate. Eli began visiting Martin regularly, and the two bonded slowly, cautiously. There was warmth in their meetings, a surprising ease. Martin saw in his son not just a reflection of himself, but also of who he could become, a man capable of weathering storms, even ones he didn't see coming. But peace was a fragile thing. It didn't last. 6 months into the custody agreement, Chelsea filed a motion to declare Eli as the primary heir to Martin's holdings. She claimed Martin was unfit to manage both business and parental duties and hinted at a potential move to another state unless her conditions were met. The timing was strategic, just days before the Richardson annual board vote. If Martin lost majority control, Thomas would take over. Chelsea was aligning herself with the enemy, and Martin saw it too late. The courtroom battle that followed became the trial of the decade in Windham Cove. Testimonies were called, records examined, private moments twisted into public shame. Chelsea produced letters, texts, fragments of memory reconstructed to paint Martin as neglectful and manipulative. Martin countered with financial records, timelines, eyewitnesses. Smitty, surprisingly, refused to testify. "I won't be part of this circus," he told the court. Let the facts speak for themselves, but his silence said everything. In the end, the judge ruled for joint custody, citing the boys' best interests. Chelsea didn't get full control, but she got recognition. Eli was named as heir apparent in the revised family trust, with stipulations. Martin kept control of the company for now. Thomas was furious. Smitty vanished from the public eye entirely. 1 year later, the dust had settled, but scars remained. Martin visited Eli every week, now more a father than ever. Chelsea kept her distance unless necessary. The estate ran on routine, but never comfort. And Smitty. He resurfaced in New York, launching a law firm with a focus on LGBTQ+ family rights, his name now whispered with respect and a touch of sorrow. Beyond the gates of the Richardson mansion, behind the manicured hedges and polished glass, the truth still lingered like smoke. One child, one secret, one betrayal that changed everything. And nothing would ever be the same again. But time doesn't heal everything. It only hides the scars. 2 years after the court ruling, the Richardson name was intact on paper but splintered beneath the surface. Martin held onto the company by his fingernails. Every board meeting was a battlefield. Thomas had regrouped, forging alliances with conservative investors who saw Eli as a complication, not a solution. They didn't care about the boy, they cared about legacy, image, control. Chelsea, once their unexpected ally, became a liability when she started making noise again, demanding more, showing up uninvited, talking to the press. Martin's relationship with Eli grew deeper, but so did the weight of it. Eli was 5 now, old enough to ask questions, smart enough to know the answers didn't make sense. He asked where Smitty went. He asked why Mommy and Daddy didn't live together. And one day, he asked, Why does everyone get quiet when I walk into the room? Martin didn't know what to say. The answer, unspoken, was this: because Eli was the symbol of everything broken, of a marriage lost, a legacy torn in two, a family that had never really been one. Chelsea, sensing her influence slipping, made her boldest move yet. She filed a petition to move Eli out of state permanently. She'd taken a job in Chicago, she said. Better schools, better future. The usual lines. But the truth was sharper. She was going to start over, and she wanted Eli with hair away from the Richardsons, away from the scrutiny, away from Martin. Martin fought it. Publicly. Viciously. The custody battle reignited, fiercer than before. This time, Chelsea didn't have Thomas behind her, grown tired of her theatrics, but she didn't need him. She had social media. She had sympathy. She painted herself as the mother struggling to co-parent with a billionaire tied up in scandals and power games. She posted old photos, videos of Eli playing in the park, subtly edited clips of Martin on the phone during visits, and the public bought it. Headlines spun out of control. The forgotten father, Chelsea Hamilton, fights for son's future against corporate empire. Is the Richardson heir just another PR pawn? Martin's lawyers warned him. We're losing the court of opinion. And family judges read those headlines. They advise settlement, concessions, even supervised visitation. Martin refused. But behind closed doors, he was unraveling. Smitty returned to Wyndham Cove quietly. No press, no announcements, just a visit to an old friend and a silent drive past the cliffs where his old house still stood. He didn't intend to get involved until he saw Eli at a grocery store holding Chelsea's hand, looking small and worried. Their eyes met, just for a second. Eli didn't recognize him, but Smitty recognized that look, loneliness dressed as bravery. The next day, Smitty showed up at Martin's door. I'm not here for you, he said. I'm here for him. They talked long, angry, tired conversations. And for the first time, Martin admitted it. I don't know if I can keep fighting. Smitty looked at him. Then don't. But don't let her take him. With Smitty's help and testimony, this time at final hearing played out differently. Smitty spoke about Martin not as a husband, but as a father. Flawed, overwhelmed, but trying. And the court listened. Chelsea was granted permission to move, but only if Martin was granted extended custody rights, including summers and long holidays, and unrestricted communication. She was furious, but she took the deal. She had a new life waiting. Martin, alone again, but resolute, began building something more permanent with Eli. He stopped attending most board meetings. He stepped down as CEO and handed control to a neutral trustee until Eli was of age. Thomas protested, but it was done. Martin put his son before the company. For the first time, Wyndham Cove started whispering something new. Respect. Smitty didn't stay, but he didn't vanish either. He visited when Eli was around. They went for ice cream. They talked. Sometimes Martin joined. They didn't speak about the past. They didn't have to. It was there, in every silence. Years passed. Eli grew up between two homes. He understood who he was. He carried the Richardson name with a strange dignity. He asked about Smitty often. He called him his almost dad, and one day, when he was old enough, he asked the question no one had dared ask Martin out loud. If she hadn't come back with me, would you and Smitty still be married? Martin looked at him, heart heavy but clear. I don't know, but I know I wouldn't change anything. Because then I wouldn't have you. Eli nodded, as if he understood something adults never could. And just like that, the story didn't end in tragedy. Not quite. It ended with consequence, with survival, with choices made and owned. And beyond the gates of the once imposing Richardson estate, what grew wasn't perfection but something better. Truth.